Hello and welcome to Air and Space Forces Magazine. I'm Tobias, Naegele, Editor-in-Chief. I'm here with Heather Penney from the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies. And we are at the AFA Warfare Symposium 2025. Heather, yesterday the Air Force Chief, General Alvin, opened up with a keynote that was unusual in its transparency. Tell us a little bit about what he talked about.
No, the transparency that the chief spoke to the audience about was really refreshing and enlightening regarding the challenges, the opportunities, and the trade-offs that the Air Force is facing in today's environment. So he focused on three primary issues, right? And they are very aligned with what Secretary Hegseth's priorities are, and rightfully so. We have the warrior ethos and really getting that warfighter culture and combat culture reinvigorated within the service. The second is really readiness and lethality, so making sure that the forces that we have are as lethal and as ready as possible so they can do anything, anywhere across the globe at any time.
And he said rebuilding.
Yes.
Rebuilding the Air Force or rebuilding the military, and I think that was a big theme throughout.
Absolutely, and this really gets to the limitations of where we are today in the service because as you've heard Mitchell say, for over 30 years, the Air Force has been underfunded with respect to the other services. And so he was very clear and transparent about how that has impacted the Air Force regarding installations, personnel, flying hours, aircraft capacity, so the number of aircraft that we have, the age of those aircraft. So that really was enlightening for all of us. Those of us who have been tracking it closely, we were able to see the actual numbers that he provided to the audience. Because in the last administration, there wasn't as much visibility into the state of those combat forces.
So for example, flying hours, you could see from the graph that he put up, not since 2017 had the Air Force met its flying hour objective. He showed the drawdown by squadrons and aircraft and people. So people 40%, squadrons 60%, but infrastructure, really we're talking bases, 15%.
Well, and also note it was CONUS infrastructure.
That's right. Because
over the past 30 years we've closed a lot of overseas bases, but he was also talking specifically about ramp space. So having excess ramp space. So this is a challenge that the service faces because they have to continue to maintain, to modernize, and to allocate manpower for the maintenance and upgrading of all of that infrastructure and the ramp space. But there's always that tension for looking at closing down infrastructure is once you close that infrastructure down, you never get it back. Yes. And especially with ramp space, this could be important as the Air Force really is in a period where we must grow and increase capacity across all of our different mission areas. So it's an area where there is both opportunity to be able to reap some fiscal efficiencies there, some fiscal savings, and reapportion that against other readiness priorities. But it's something that we have to be conscientious about because, as you recall, we closed down pilot training bases in the 1990s, and now we are at a point where we don't have the pilot training capacity because we lack the bases to be able to reach that.
Lack the bases, lack the airplanes.
Yes.
Which is also a problem. So
yes.
He talked about that the last one of those legs was deterrence, restoring deterrence. And generally people think in terms of nuclear deterrence, but there's also obviously a conventional deterrence aspect. You want to be ready enough and strong enough that somebody doesn't want to risk taking you on. What did you hear him say that supported that?
Well, so to get back to the two elements of deterrence is he really did foot stomp the service's commitment to the two legs of the triad and the 3/4 of NC3 that the Air Force is responsible for. And
so Sentinel and the Sentinel missile and the B-21 bomber.
Yes, and when we talk about Sentinel, it's the entire system, right? So it's the silos, it's all the infrastructure, it's the security apparatus, It's the missile itself, and it's everything that then supports that as well. And so within the Department of the Air Force, this also bleeds over into communications, indications and warning, and so forth. So that was very important because that is really crucial and foundational to our entire security. But to get back to the conventional deterrence piece, this is also tied to the readiness and lethality conversation that he was having. So, for example, as you mentioned that we'd not been able to hit our flying hour program and target, and also note that that was, I think, much less. Those flying hours per pilot are much less than they have been historically. So if you look at the rate at which, or the hours per month that pilots were flying in the 1990s and 1980s, pilots were flying 20 hours a month, and today we're flying less than 10. And that's both a combination of choices that the last administration made, where we heard the previous Secretary of the Air Force, Kendall, say he deliberately took risk in readiness so that he could fund his research priorities. But it's also, and this was really important, what General Alvin said, was that the older the aircraft get, the more maintenance man hours per flying hour they require. Right. So it requires more time, it requires more manpower, requires more spare parts, and so it increases the cost and decreases the availability of those aircraft. So that was a really important part of the readiness discussion, which is directly tied to the deterrence discussion, because you cannot deter if you are not strong, if you don't have the capacity, you don't have the training, you don't have the readiness.
So one kind of surprise that we heard about was General Alvin talked about the two collaborative combat aircraft.
Yes,
and he announced their names, and he called them fighters.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So the YFQ-42 and the YFQ-44 are the two CCA collaborative combat aircraft that are in increment 1.
And the 42 is the General Atomics aircraft?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And the 44 is
the Fury, yes. And what's really important about this is one, as having that fighter designation really signals that they are part of this lethality push, that they are part of being combat ready, and that they are going to work as part of a team with manned fighters and manned aircraft within the battle space at the forward edge to be able to provide that kind of lethality against our adversaries. So it's very important both in terms of the signaling to airmen regarding the teaming between humans and machine, but also, importantly, signaling to our adversaries that we're not just developing unmanned aircraft for ISR, for example, but we are going to use it to put, as he said, warheads on foreheads.
So force multipliers is a sort of a favorite
Yes.
U.S. military kind of concept of operations. We don't expect to be bigger than the adversary, we expect to be better. These are force multipliers, but they're not going to replace the pilot in the loop. They're going to complement. How do you expand or how do you build capacity with these while sustaining your manned capabilities?
Well, I think that the unmanned CCA are intended to be less expensive than crewed aircraft, so you can buy more of them. They will be smaller. They will be much simpler in terms of their systems, their function. They don't need to necessarily have the same level of reliability or hours for life cycle hours. So there are a number of ways that we can reap benefits to achieve cost savings within these platforms. But importantly, how they're going to be that force multiplier, not only having more of them, but what they can do and how they can be provide more options and greater firepower to the manned platforms that are within the battle space. So whether or not that's enhancing situational awareness, providing additional fire control, providing additional weapons, there are a number of different things that the CCA can do. And if you look at Mitchell Institute, we've done a series of reports. We have roughly 5 or 6 reports on CCA and what unmanned aircraft could do. And when we look at them, in addition to being wingmen or part of that collaborative combat aircraft, we can use them to detonate adversary tactics, force the adversary to respond, get them off their game plan. We can distract them. We can degrade them. We can disrupt them. Yeah. So there are a number of different things that we can do, from EW to additional missiles to having additional processing power out there, additional sensing capability, providing those nodes. The CCA have a tremendous potential to be able to enhance our overall system lethality.
All right, so let's pick up on that term. potential. There are those who would say, hey, why are we still going down the manned route? Famously, the era of manned fighters is over. Why is the era of manned fighters not over? And how long is going to take before we see that kind of radical transition?
People radically misunderstand and underestimate the cognitive complexity involved with combat aviation. It's one thing to have a self-driving car in perfect weather, but it's something entirely different to be able to operate within the fog and friction of a three-dimensional battle space, which is highly dynamic, fast-paced, where adversaries are trying to kill you, they're trying to, they're jamming you, they're trying to deceive you and disrupt you. So when you are faced with that kind of lack of certainty, when there's ambiguity within the environment, humans have the ability to make choices even through uncertainty. They're able to improvise, they're able to borrow from experiences they've had in different domains and make it up on the fly. But we don't have that same capability within artificial intelligence right now, and for a number of different reasons. And I have been to a lot of our autonomy industry partners, and what they're doing is really exciting and really amazing. But even their engineers say, we are not there yet. And so what we need to do is we need to see what the strengths are of these systems, where they excel, what they're good at, where they're better than humans, and then look at how we team them with humans so that we can ensure that we are getting the maximum performance out of both the artificial intelligence of the CCA as well as the human within the battle space, so that they're more effective together than on their own.
All right, so you were an F-16 pilot, and you had to have a very high level of trust with your wingman. Mm-hmm. What's the process, and how long will it take to develop that level of trust with robot wingmen?
The challenge is that although it might take me 2 years to train actually not even that long, 2 years to train a really good wingman, I'm starting out with a robust human brain. For us to be able to develop that level of mission autonomy could take decades.
So if it's decades, then this manned-unmanned teaming that you've written about pretty extensively is a long-term proposition. We're not only are we not there yet in 5 years, we're really not there yet.
And maybe probably 20, 25 years.
So we're going to need...
This teaming is really important, though. Yes, we are absolutely going to need humans within the battle space because they will have that advantage of human cognition and being able to improvise, innovate, be surprising, be able to take action even though there's uncertainty within the battle space and things are happening outside of what they had trained for, what the perfect game plan was. But having the CCA within the battle space teamed with humans is crucial because not only then will we be able to figure out how do we team together best, but we're gathering data to continue to then improve the agents of the CCA so we can up-level and upskill those CCA incrementally but appropriately in ways that we as Americans fight. So it's important that we remain committed to CCA because they will be those force multipliers because they do offer us incredible opportunity when we operate as a system that will make us more effective, but we also need to make sure that we don't push them further than their actual capabilities are, because right now the level of trust when it comes to autonomous systems is crucial, because if we don't trust them, we won't use them. If we don't trust them, we're not going to be able to place them in positions where we'll maximize their effectiveness. So we need to manage our expectations, understand what their limitations are, so we put them in the places where they can be super successful, build trust across the entire team, and then continue to gather data so we can continue to train those agents and then improve their performance capacity and opportunity within the mission space.
Okay, Heather Penney, I would trust you anywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tobias.